Hello friends, and welcome back to the channel. So as you can see from the title, I wanted to take some time today to kind of talk about the state of Alliance War. I've been meaning to make a video like this for some time, but Taters put out a video the other day on how to fix war, and it kind of remotivated me to get my thoughts out there as well. Now, if you haven't seen Taters' video, I'll link it in the description below. It's definitely worth a watch. It's succinct, it's concise, it's everything you'd expect from him. I don't want this video to be kind of like a direct response to him, but I do want to talk about a few things that he mentioned just kind of as like a jumping off point for this discussion. So he starts off by flagging 5 of the biggest issues in war right now, and I really agree with all of them. He states early on that the video is really focused on high tier war, so like tiers 1, 2, and 3, but with like a few minor exceptions. I think that those issues really apply to war like across the board, especially the cost, which I think is the biggest problem. Then he kind of goes on to describe 3 big fixes that he would put in place to fix war, and again, I think all 3 are really solid ideas. That said, I want to start here by kind of saying that I think that he and I fundamentally disagree on the idea that Alliance War can even be fixed in the first place. I think that there are a lot of things that could be done, not only to improve war for the players who choose to participate in it, but maybe more importantly, bring players back to the mode who have quit. But I also think that any such changes will never realistically ever have a chance to actually be implemented. So up until now, Kabam has kind of really only implemented minor changes to war in between seasons. You know, there have been some map changes here and there. Every time a defense tactic becomes too meta, they replace it. You saw that with Flow, you saw that with Stubborn, and now Protect is probably on the way out as well. And sometimes they don't change anything. The point is that they have continued and will continue to kind of double down on a game mode that is, in general, the same as it was when it was first introduced, other than the concept of seasons. And I think that the biggest reason for that is that the mode just isn't that profitable for them. Outside of a good portion of Masters, Platinum 1, maybe Platinum 2, I think that there are very few players pushing hard enough in war to the point that they need to spend real money to support it. You know, there are lots of players pushing in war, not a lot of players spending on war. And the groups that I just listed amounts to fewer than 2,000 people. So Kabam is a business, and from a business standpoint, there really is no reason for them to put in the time and resources into a mode where it's likely that fewer than 2,000 players are actually giving them a return on it. So that kind of brings me to my first point, which is that I firmly believe that we haven't seen and likely will not ever see any meaningful changes to the mode as it is today, because the changes that would actually improve war across the board would likely minimize or even eliminate what little money they do make as a result. So in essence, you can think of it as Kabam's goals for war and the players' goals for war are really just nowhere close to each other. So to that point, I want to focus on one of the solutions that Taters brought up in his video, and that's the idea of an item cache. The way that he described it, an item cache would essentially be a standard, static list of items that each war participant would choose and then receive before every war. And there are a lot of benefits to such a change. You know, it puts the players on a more even playing field because everybody who's playing gets the same things. It makes revives and potions restore a flat percentage of a champion's health, so that as our attackers grow in strength, and health pools, the item usage doesn't grow along with it. And third, it kind of ends the ludicrous need to boost multiple times in a single war by making whichever boost you do choose last for the entire duration, the entire 24-hour period. Now, if you're sitting there thinking to yourself that this would be an amazing player-friendly change, and it would eliminate what I think anyway is the biggest problem with war, and that's the high cost, then you can kind of probably see where I'm going with this. The problem is that there is seemingly zero chance that Kabam would ever agree to a change that reduces the cost of war to the players. Period. And In fact, they've taken steps to actually increase the cost to players. They introduced those more potent Alliance War specific potions, but did they put them in the Glory Store? Nope, only for units. They introduced 6-hour boosts, but can you earn them anywhere? No, you can't. They want you to spend units every single war to buy them. Just like they want players to continue buying and using the big boy boosts from that advanced questing pack in the store or for money offers. Is it just a coincidence that the invulnerability boosts are so rarely in the loyalty store anymore? And in some alliances, you may not even have the option except to take on these costs, because they will straight up kick you out if they find out that you didn't boost. So one of the ideas that I have floated around kind of revolves around clearing the map. So Kabam has stated more than once publicly that they do not like that the war map is cleared 100% all the time. And I kind of agree with this. I feel like the clearing the map and taking out the boss should be an accomplishment and not a requirement of war. And to that end, I would introduce permadeath. No reviving allowed. I would reduce the item usage from 15 to 5 and disallow all boosts. And of course, the goal here would be to kind of distill the mode down, make it more about skill and less about who can afford the most boosts and potions. But again, this is a solution that's designed to reduce the cost and is thus pretty much a non-starter. I made the point earlier that about fixing war being a poor return on investment for Kabam, and the true irony of that is that it's also the reason why so many players have abandoned the mode completely. Like, if you're not in Platinum 3 or up, the rewards just aren't worth it. They're not worth the time, they're not worth the units, they're not worth the boosts, they're not worth the stress. And I think that's kind of intentional. I think that Kabam thinks if they stick the best rewards just out of reach for those like mid-tier players in Gold and like Platinum 4, then all of those players will want to push for the higher levels, for Platinum, for Masters. But I think that what we've seen and what we kind of continue to see is that's having the opposite effect, and that those crappy rewards in the mid-tier levels are actually just pushing people away completely. The last point I want to make is something that one of my friends brought up to me the other day when he and I were talking about this, and he said that when it comes to a competitive game mode, it's always going to be painful because of the human element involved in it. There are always going to be players who are very competitive, and there are always going to be players who aren't. And war is kind of a mode where the inmates are running the asylum, right? For all the player-based complaints about Kabam when they design, BS nodes in content with, 1 or 2 niche counters to a fight out of 200 champs, like, that is literally the goal of designing a war defense. For one player to design the most painful fight possible for another player. And there's no way to really fix that without taking the player-controlled element out completely. And at that point, it really ceases to be a PvP mode in the first place. So that's why I think that the best way to fix Alliance War is to just not fix it, because it can't be fixed. I think that the best fix to Alliance War is just to completely throw the mode out, scrap it, and start over with something new. There are lots of ideas out there for new and interesting PvP game modes. I think Brian and Seaton both in the past have put out videos describing ideas for such modes. Like, why not try one? It doesn't make much sense to me that Kabam is seemingly so resistant to significant changes to Alliance War if the mode isn't that profitable to them in the first place. Tear it down, design something that is new and fun and brings players back into the fold. Like, think of the original concept of dungeons and how bland it was. Nobody was playing it, nobody was excited about it, nobody was streaming it, and the mode just kind of died. Kabam took it offline, they went back to the drawing board and really just redesigned it from the ground up. And now what you have is what I think is one of the best modes in the game in Incursions. A mode that way more people are playing, a mode that people are streaming, organizing tournaments for, A mode that people are happily spending thousands of units on to hit those high sectors when there are some good rewards on the line. But most importantly, a mode that is fun. Like, everybody wins. So that's kind of all I wanted to say today. I know I've probably talked a bit longer than I meant to, but that's how it goes sometimes. So what do you think? Is war fixable, or is it pretty much hopeless? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to hit like if you've enjoyed this discussion, and hit subscribe for some more stuff later. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you again next time.